Hey everyone, welcome back to Life Possible with a Disability. And I'm very excited today to have my friend Renee Tyree um, as my guest. And we are going to talk about service dogs, which I've only done in like a blog format before. I've never had a live guest on. Renee, welcome to Life Possible.
Hi, welcome. Come here, Keeks.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and about your disability, and we'll like dig in from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me, Karen. This is exciting. Um, so I am a wheelchair user for almost 40 years. Oh my gosh, I feel old now, right? So,
I know, right behind
yeah.
you.
I have been with paraplegia as a result of a neurological condition since I was 19 years old. And I've used a manual chair all my life. I've been a competitive athlete, Paralympic athlete as well. Um, I'm also a pharmacist. I'm a full-time pharmacist
I
practicing.
didn't know that.
Yeah, that's
I
where,
didn't know that you did.
yeah, so that's
And we have a mutual friend, also another Julie Barth, who is with New Motion, who an occupational therapist by background, also lives in Arizona, and one of my favorite people. And I know you guys are like dear friends, and that's kind of how we got together.
Absolutely. So yeah, Julie, actually we met working with the spinal cord injury on a board and association and here in Arizona, and then we ended up our paths crossing and working together in the field of rehabilitative medicine, and now she's with you. So yeah, it's really great.
That
Um,
is so great.
yeah.
She loves you so much, and yeah. So I remember her talking about um, just you in general. So what kind of Paralympic athlete were you?
Did 12 years on the U.S. team for wheelchair basketball and competed in Paralympics in, let's see, um, 1992, 96, and '04. And I've got a full set of colored medals, so to speak, so gold, silver, and bronze, and ended on the gold in 2004 and retired after that. Yeah.
That is very cool. So were you a pharmacist when you were competing?
I was just finishing school in '92, so I took a year off from the University of Arizona's College of Pharmacy. I was there, took a year off just to be able to train more and travel that I needed to do. And then after that, I graduated and then still competed. And right now, I really can't believe that I did all that while working and
Yeah.
going to school. Like I just, the amount of energy that you have at that point and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's an amazing journey. So like I'm 35 years paralyzed. I was
Hmm.
also 19. I did not do any sort of athletics. I was like they used to make the joke like I sucked at athletics before I got shot, and I wasn't that much better. And yeah, but anyway, we have like similar journey paths as far as that goes, and then like grad school and things. So tell us a little about um, because all of that time you never had a service dog.
No, and it's really interesting. And I think you and I chatted a little bit about this just in general as we share about our aging and disability and how all that plays into effect and some of the emotional pieces that go along with that and, and the self-doubt and, just all the things of natural aging and living with the disability and living well with the disability. And um, so, your body starts to fail on some levels. And I've had a lot of shoulder issues the last few years, but even before that, I knew that I wanted to get a service dog. But I've talked to quite a lot of people before I decided to do that, and colleagues and friends of mine through sports, other Paralympic athletes that had service dogs, and really getting my head around an acceptance of what a dog can provide, and just like I had a lot of, I don't know, baggage or thoughts about, oh, I don't deserve a service dog. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
disabled enough for a service dog. All of that stuff. I'm not worthy. There's people that need it
Yeah.
much more than me. All of those types of conversations came into play. Um, And really, the conversations I had with people that had dogs, regardless of their level of disability, and I talked to folks that were also Paralympic athletes, um, and we're like, they're life changing, and it doesn't really matter. We know this. It doesn't matter what other people think. It's our life. It's what they bring for us, et cetera. So I just really dove into that and accepted it didn't matter what other people said and what is and what and what a difference that the dogs could bring to your life.
Mhm.
So that's how I got into it, and really getting my head around accepting it. I love dogs. And then just the ability to train and be with a service dog, and enriching your lives and providing a really great service is what I've realized. So,
That's interesting because I think that a lot of people would be surprised that someone who, you know, with our level of disability and like you and I, because you and I have probably have lots of friends both that are quads, and
mhm.
so but we're pretty severely disabled now, but highly functional.
Right, right. So I'm
But
at about a T6 level, and
wow.
but I think you and I are similar in that we don't think of ourselves of like having this severe disability, right? Or really needing assistance, or I think there's that word need, and
Hmm.
it's not about need, it's about having
Well,
really great quality of life.
hmm, yeah, that's great. So tell us your journey and what organization you chose and why.
Yep. So I knew about Canine Companions for Independence for years. Just again from being in the community, having awareness of service dogs and disability community, and I knew that. So that's the organization I chose. And for a couple of reasons, a lot of reasons, but one was that they were the largest organization in the United States, had the most experience in training service dogs, since 1970s, and just being able to, go through and provide really great dogs that were fully trained, and that process for people with disabilities that needed them. And then as I really made, after that choice, I really got into learning more about their operations, how they provide service dogs to people with disabilities free of charge. And just the whole process of training was a philosophy that I believed in, and their matching. And then even now, after I've gotten my service dog, I've learned more about the science, which, you and I both being in medical fields and stuff, that really appeals to me, about the breeding programs and how they
Yes.
select dogs to be service dogs, and just all of
I
that.
don't think people have any idea
Mm-mm.
the like selection process of the animals and how many don't make it, even though they may have been bred for it, and then the, the fact that the training happens like from birth.
Right. So yeah. So the program is they have their own breeding program. I mean, again, this has evolved over many years of learning and education and science involved in it. And they are, as I call it, the mothership, or the home office is in up near in Santa Rosa, California, Northern California, and all their breeding is done near there. So they have a volunteer breeder caretaker program, people that take care of the dogs that are selected to be bred, and they're bred for characteristics of their breeders, right, are different than, for example, I learned this, and we talked about this with than guide dogs. The
Mm.
temperaments and the abilities, even though they're very similar dogs, are different. So service dogs need to obey commands, and I think the other way to think about it is dogs, for guide dogs, need not to they need to be disobedient, in the sense they need to protect their owner in a different way. So these
Right.
are
Right.
subtleties, and you think about, like you said, the dogs are bred and for specific characteristics, and then further trained for that. Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. And that's, I've learned a lot about them really just through the abilities expos,
Hmm.
mostly because a lot of times they'll have a booth there. And I always knew that, down the road, I haven't done it yet. It's so funny because I have two little dogs that I joke because I service them very
Right.
much. That's a one-way street.
Yeah.
But I one day, like I will. I just think right now because they're both so needy, and just the combination of having a service dog in my home and them, that would be very confusing. And just, it was too many dogs for one thing. And
Right.
but I'm yeah. So tell us, like I know Kiki is her name,
Yes.
and right, and she has her
Yeah.
own Instagram page, but it took you like you they that wasn't like you didn't find Kiki right away.
No, I didn't. So, um, as I say to folks that ask me about canine companions in the program, you've got to trust the process, right? So they know what they're doing. They have it. They have years of experience in this. So for me, well, the whole process in general is an application. So there's a documents you fill out, and it's quite extensive. And then there's a review process, and then there is actually I started it during the time of COVID, so there wasn't this in person. So there was a little difference than their normal for
Mm,
selection. So we did video meetings versus in person prior to the selection. After they have what's basically they decide. So for where I live, this would be in Oceanside, California, is where I would go to their centers. They've got centers all across the country, but for my location, California. Um, and then they would say, hey, we've got a dog that we would like you to come to team training with, and they pre-match you, or basically have some dog in mind for you, where then they would match and see how you are at training. And I go there for 2 weeks. So my first dog that I got matched with at that time was a beautiful, beautiful yellow lab um, golden retriever mix, like they all are. She was beautiful, and we did really well in training and got her home. And actually, um, she didn't match, which I think is really difficult, and it's part of the process. And it kind of it just highlights what the service dogs do and how they are. They got to match the person, they got to match the lifestyle. So I'm very active, as we talked about, and I fly for part of my work and do all these things. And my dog that I was matched with really didn't match the energy level, and she just wasn't, as I say, feeling it, which
yeah.
is really hard. I mean, you get attached to these sweet things, but you really need to think about that the dogs are not pets. There's that distinction. They're not there. So I was in contact with the center and everything, obviously, and made the hard decision to have her sent back there to be evaluated. Is there something medically going on? Is there really, but it ultimately decided that she was not a fit with me.
Hmm.
She's a great fit, and she's having a wonderful job at a facility now and lays in kiddos' beds with cancer and everything. She's amazing. But
Perfect.
they picked out a second dog for me, and who I have now is Kiki, and that just demonstrates the process of what the value and how these perfect matches are really end up being perfect. And
That's
you
amazing.
get to see all her videos. So
I know, I love it. Yeah, you guys are gonna, I'll put her information on the website so that you can follow along. So, how I've always wondered, like, I travel a lot too, I'm in airports a lot and that kind of thing. Is that, like, I've wondered at times, like, is this gonna make it easier or is this gonna make it harder? Like, finding a place to pick them out and that kind of thing.
yeah, that's a great question because there is definitely owner responsibilities of a dog, right? And so it's not like just freedom going. So there are added things. I won't, sugarcoat that. I mean, there's food, there's water, there's still a dog. They're not a machine, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
I'm very well versed at the care part of it, right? So I
right.
mean, I like it, but
Yeah,
I don't travel with them, right? I just either leave them with family or
yeah.
board them. But hotels
Hmm.
and I could see the difficulties of traveling with a disability are exacerbated when you're traveling, and that's probably when you need the dog more. And I'm sure the airport, I've just not identified the spots to let them out and that kind of thing, they
Yeah.
exist.
It really works. It's not as difficult. I mean, clearly the first time I went, I probably had more anxiety than she did about it, just like you said, figuring out all these little nuances and things and preparing for that. But right now it's such a routine that it's very simple. And Yeah, and they're a good spokesperson for disability and just the conversations that we have to have, and kind of bridging that awkwardness sometimes, or people are more attuned to talk to a dog than me, and I'm like, that's okay.
Right. No, it's probably definitely a conversation starter. And I because I have so many friends with disabilities who have these highly trained service dogs, and so I've had the argument many times, like, there's a big difference between those, and you'll sometimes you see the people that buy the vest and do the thing online so they can travel with the dog. And to me, because I'm well versed at it, not as much as you are, but I have so many friends that you can kind of spot
The
which
fake
ones make
service dogs.
yes, the ones that are fake, and they're just doing it to be able to travel, and it just makes me crazy. But I'm sure that the more you travel and bring awareness to other people, maybe that highlights the difference, and and the need for it, and the reason that people should think twice before trying to go onto the internet.
Yeah, and the laws, legislation is helping. I mean, they are getting like the Air Carriers Act, and and the airlines have changed, so they don't allow emotional support dogs or animals to fly anymore. So they're more in alignment with the Americans with Disabilities Act now, and states have more laws on fake service dogs or misrepresenting service dogs, but it's still wide open, and it's still, it presents a safety concern, just not only for
Mhm.
public, but for service dogs, well-trained service dogs like Kiki. We've had a couple interactions, and it's scary, and those types of things take service dogs that have been trained, that have a high value to them, could potentially take them out of service, and
Right.
that's just the risk of it. It's not, is that really worth just having your pet that you think
Mhm.
is well behaved with you out, and then having it in unforward toward
I
interaction?
didn't even think about that as a potential risk, but it is. But yeah, and it's and I say this all the time, and I don't mean it to be controversial, but my little dogs are emotionally supportive to me.
Hmm.
That does not mean that I need to take them with me everywhere all the time, right? And I know that there are some fine lines, right? Because there are PTSD and other invisible disabilities, and I definitely don't am taking nothing away from the fact that there are true needs there, but there is a difference between a highly trained service dog and one that isn't. So thank you for doing that and bringing awareness to that. Um, so I guess, like, what would you say to someone who's your best advice for someone who's considering it, maybe on the fence? Like, do you have some words of wisdom?
Sure. So ask people. I mean, I think that to me was my best learning is ask questions and do homework. Talk to people that have them. Talk to, any agency, or, if you're considering a trained, fully trained service dog from an organization. Um, Find out, what you're, be clear, maybe be clear on what you would like the dog to do for you. I'll tell you, that was an area maybe I didn't do as much homework as I thought. I knew some things, but what's really expanded for me, and you've know this from the videos too, is I'm finding things that she can do that I never thought I quote needed. I'm like,
Right.
wow. And that's just, I never knew it was quote a problem or a concern until she's able to do it, and
Yeah,
fix
and I
it.
think you make a really good point about aging with a disability, and maybe it isn't even aging with a disability, but the number of times, like, you get up to do something, or maybe difficult, like, or I forget something across a room, and when we're at this point trying to, like, conserve upper joint preservation, right? Upper body joint
Mhm.
preservation. So if I'd have to get up three more times to do these little things, first of all, there's like a safety concern, right? So you're minimizing your risk of falls probably. I do some things I probably shouldn't when I can't reach something. And I think
Oh
those are
my
things
gosh,
that
right? That's
people
exactly
can,
right.
yeah, yeah. I'm like halfway out of the chair leaning
Chair
over.
falling over, falling in your face. Yeah. So one of the activities that I practice every night with her, and it has come to reality for me, is Kiki can go get my phone wherever it is. I have two phones, one for work and one for home. And so at night, just as a routine, just to practice, I place them in different places in my home, and then I'm in bed, and she goes and brings them right up to me. Um, so if I drop my phone, and then recently, I don't know how I should tell this all public, but reality is,
Oh,
is
wow.
I did have a fall out of my wheelchair in, it doesn't matter how it all happened. But anyway, so
Yeah.
my phone went flying in a parking lot, and Kiki went to get it and bring it back.
Wow.
I mean, granted, I had my
That's
Apple
the
Watch.
difference between potentially being there for a really long time with no help and being able to call for help.
Correct. Yeah. So it was remarkable. They know what to do when they need to do it. And yeah, so you don't know what you need. But I think you're exactly right. It doesn't put, you're not putting yourself at risk, or it minimizes risk of falling even more, tweaking and joint preservation. And yeah, and it's all okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
It
Hmm.
is. I mean, obviously, like I not wishing the demise of my like smaller dogs. One of them might live for like a really long time, and they actually both seem really healthy, even though they're getting up there. But yeah, like I think there is one in my future, and I love watching your journey with Kiki, and I
Yep.
think it would probably make it easier in case there was like a potential non-match, um, that you went through it and survived, and that dog found its perfect place. It just wasn't with it. There's Kiki.
There's Kiki. Kiki, say
Hi,
hi.
Kiki.
Say
Hi.
hi.
Hi. Oh, so pretty. She's so pretty,
Good job.
and they are all so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yep. So there's
And
Kiki.
oh
Kiki's.
my goodness, Kiki is a star.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll get lots of new followers after we post this
Yes.
podcast.
You too.
What tell us real quick, what's the Instagram
Yeah.
page?
At Miss Kiki Smiles. MISSKIKI Smiles. Yep.
That's so cool. Well, and then I'll put all the other information up there. I'll probably like I'll get you like a little short bio of yours, and then the link to Canine Companion so that
Hmm.
people know the
Please.
process, can
Yep.
check the website and that kind of
And
thing.
for canine companions, it's all volunteers. So one, we're always looking for volunteers to raise puppies and to train, additional to servicing folks. So yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
wonderful. Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. And we'll do this again. We'll find some other topic to do this on. And then eventually I'm gonna like meet you in person and have lunch with you and
I
Julie
know
and
we
everything.
will. I'll know it. I know. We'll all fit. I mean, then we won't stop.
I know. Very excited about that.
Yeah.
Renee, thank you again,
Thank
and we'll
you.
see you soon.
All right.
Okay.